Greetings to everyone. Hope you all are hale and hearty. And I am Ujaswata Priyadarshini Gaur, an undergraduate from MEM Engineering College, Jodhpur. And in this module, we're going to be discussing the solutions to sample paper 3, chemistry, physics, and biology mixed. And we are going to target class 9. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the first question, or the sixth question in continuation to the previous module is, give three properties of metals or give three differences between mixtures and compounds. Now, we're going to be, the approach to this question is going to be such that we're going to divide this question to two parts. In the part A, we'll be discussing the properties of the metals, and in the part B, we'll be giving the three differences between mixtures and compounds. So, metals, the three properties of metals here we're going to discuss is first that they have a metallic luster or shine, that is, they're shiny in appearance. The second part, or the second property, is that they are good conductors of heat and electricity. Now, why does this happen? So, because these metals are going to have a free electron. So, this electron is responsible for the conduction of electricity, and that is why you have copper used in your electric line systems, and you have aluminum used in various automobiles, and as well as in aeroplanes and all stuff, because of the reason that they are good conductors of heat and electricity. And finally, they are quite malleable. That means they can be drawn into thin sheets. And they're also, I would like to add to this, they are also ductile. That means they can be drawn into thin wires, and they're sonorous. So if you see this picture right here, you will have a number of examples of metals like brass, bronze, metal sludge, steel, copper, cast iron, aluminium. So all these metals are, they have shiny appearance. They are good conductors of heat and electricity. They're malleable. They're ductile. They're sonorous. Yes. And the part B of the question, now we'll be discussing the fundamental three differences between mixtures and compounds. So the first difference says that mixtures or elements or compounds that have been mixed to form a mixture and no new compounds are formed. That means you're just putting in elements or compounds that you're just putting it into another say beaker or something, any substance which can contain, and you're putting all those things, but they're not reacting with each other. You're just mixing them, and there is no chemical reaction between these stuffs. Then you form a mixture. Whereas in the case of compounds, when you have to put two elements together, and they are undergoing a chemical reaction, or some sort of reaction is going to take place, which is going to change the form of the product that would be formed, would be completely new as compared to the two parent elements, right? So the second difference says that mixtures have a variable composition and compounds have a very fixed composition. Yes, because mixing elements into a definite proportion is only going to give you a certain compound, and that needs a fixed composition. And the third difference says that exhibits the properties similar to the constituents, whereas compounds exhibit different properties. So yes, as I earlier told you as well, in case of mixtures, you don't have any sort of reactions taking place in, between those elements or compounds that have been mixed together or put together. So when you don't have any chemical reaction, you don't have any new product which is formed. So since the atoms of those parent elements are going to remain the same, they're going to exhibit the same properties. Whereas in case of compounds, when you're going to have a reaction and you have a completely new product which will be formed, so you definitely will be have different properties when it comes to the constituents. And now we come to the next question, which says, what are ions? And give two examples of ionic compounds. So ions are nothing but charged species which can exist either as a single atom with a charge or as a group of atoms with a net charge, right? An ion is a charged atom or a molecule. It is charged because the number of electrons do not equal to the number of protons. Like in the last modules, I have already told you that an uncharged atom is something which has the protons and electrons which are equal to each other. So if I say, if X is my atom and it used to have 12 electrons, it used to have 12 protons, right? 12 protons. So if it's uncharged, you will have X as it is. That means the number of protons as well as the number of electrons is 12. If I make it X plus 2, if the moment I make it X plus 2, now it means that it has lost two electrons, and now The number of protons is still the same, that is 12, but now the number of electrons have become 10. So now it has become an ion, it has become a positively charged ion, it has become a cation. And the moment I try to give this x2 more electrons, now what does this make it? The number of protons will still remain 12, but the number of electrons would now change to 14. So now this has become a negatively charged ion or an anion. So this was the basic difference between a charged ion and how do you have a charged ion, and why do they charge? Why do they gain these charges? Is a simple concept of valency and combining with other elements to have a stable state configuration. And then the examples of these ionic compounds are, first is your calcium oxide and second is sodium chloride. So calcium oxide is nothing but the combination of Ca plus 2 and O minus 2. When they're going to combine with each other, both of their octets will be filled. They will be in a stable state and they will form a compound. Similarly, you have Na, you have Cl. So Na is plus 1, Cl is minus 1. And the moment they're going to react with each other, they will they will be stable individually as well. And the compound that will be formed, this NaCl, will also be very much stable. Basically, losing and gaining of electrons and combining with the other elements has the fundamental reason for gaining stability and stable states. Now, the next question says give three observations from Rutherford's alpha particle scattering experiment. So, first, we'll try to understand what was this experiment. So, firstly, let us understand the setup. So, this is going to be your source of your alpha particles or helium charged particles, and this is your collimator or your lead shield in which these particles are kept. Now, this particle, now you will not be able to see, but there is a hole in this box or in this lead from which these rays are going to come outside of this collimator, and then they are hitting this gold foil. This is your gold foil. Now, when this alpha particle is going to hit its gold foil, what Rutherford had noted was these deflections, like this ray deflecting here, then some of them had penetrated also. In fact, most of them were penetrating, and the most interesting observation was that some of these rays had bounced back also in the same direction. So one was it had reflected here, one was it went through the gold foil and it reached this plate. This was also coated by some fluorescent material, so it gave fluorescence. If you can see, this is just a minute, let me clear this. This is your fluorescence. Now this was coated by a fluorescent material, and that is why you see this fluorescence. That was an indication that alpha particle has hit the screen, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be able to detect the impact. And here also you can see that. And this was a zinc sulfur detector. Now what actually was the three observations was that most of the alpha particles pass through the gold foil. Yes, we can see most of them are passing through the gold foil. Some of the alpha particles were deflected by small angles also. Yes, this was the small angle deviation. Then this was also a small angle deviation from the gold foil. And one in those 12,000 alpha particles were rebounded. The one that we talked about, this one that had rebounded 180 degrees, retracing its path, this one was one in those 12,000 alpha particles that were projected on this gold foil and they rebounded. Now, Ernst Rutherford, Hans Geiger, and Ernst Benson carried out their gold foil experiments to observe the effects of alpha particles on matter. Rutherford devised a way to record the location of alpha particles by surrounding the bombarded object with a sheet coated zinc sulfur, which would emit the flash of light when hit with the alpha particles. So, the fluorescent material that what we were talking about was nothing but zinc sulfur. There was ZNS, zinc sulfur, and this was emit a flash, and this is how he get to know the impact of alpha particles were hitting. And then these observations are very important, because from here we're going to conclude what actually was a nucleus here, that was a positively charged thing, that was able to, there was equal to the charge of this alpha particle, because only then this alpha particle could retrace its path 180 degrees into the opposite direction. So this was the final conclusion which he reached, said there is something which is called, which is in the Mars. It is big, it is huge, it is dense, and he named it nucleus, and he said that it was positively charged. However, he didn't know at that point of time that it was a combination of protons and neutrons, as we already know. And since neutrons have no charge, so yes, the net charge on a nucleus is positive. But on further experimentations, it was also observed that there were neutrons also in the nucleus, right? So I hope the experiment was pretty much clear to you. And now we move on to the next question, which says describe tissues and give two main types of plant tissues. So in biology, a tissue is a cellular organization level between cells and complete organs. A tissue is an assembly of similar cells and their extracellular matrix from the same origin that together carry out a very specific function. Organs that are formed by functional grouping together for multiple tissues. Tissues are a group of cells which are similar in structure, and then they give functional efficiency to a multicellular organism. So the main types of plant tissues are meristematic tissues and permanent tissues, and then you have another type of tissue which is complex permanent tissue. Now, for meristematic tissue, you can see they have apical meristem, you have intercellary meristem, and then you have a lateral meristem. These are subdivisions of meristematic tissues, and then you have permanent tissues, in which you have two types of permanent tissues. One is simple permanent tissue, the other one is complex permanent tissue. Then simple permanent tissue is also divided into parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. And your complex permanent tissue is xylem and phloem, which we have already discussed. Now, the next question says, beginning from the rest, Batman accelerates his Batmobile to reach a velocity of 60 meters per second in 10 seconds. Now, then he applies the brakes and the velocity decreases to 10 meters per second in 1 second. Calculate the acceleration of the Batmobile in both the cases. So, in the first case, that is beginning from the rest, now when you begin from the rest, you're going to have your initial velocity which is equal to 0, right? Then it has accelerated to reach a velocity of 60 meters per second, that is your terminal velocity, and in 10 seconds, that is your time is 10 seconds. Now I just have to apply the three equations of motion, and the first one of them will be nothing but a is equal to v minus u over t, which is also v is equal to u plus at. That's how it's understood, and it's more commonly known as. So when I can easily find out the acceleration in this case by substituting the values of v, u, and t. U is 0, v is 60, t is 10 seconds. So you can easily find the value of acceleration in the first case. And in the second case, you have he has applied brakes and the velocity of the Batmobile has decreased to 10 meters per second. That is, it is undergoing a deceleration, right? So deceleration, we must know that deceleration, the sign convention goes the other way around as compared to that of acceleration. That is, this is going to be negative as compared to this is going to be positive, because this is going to decrease the velocity of the Batmobile. So in this case, when you apply brakes, so initial velocity was 60 in this case, like 60, and now it has reached to a terminal velocity of 10 meters per second square. So when you apply brakes, you were initially at 60 meters per second, and you have reduced your speed to 10 meter per second, and that is true in time 1 second. So now you have to find the acceleration, again put in the same equation, v is equal to u plus at, and finally you find the deceleration to be equal to minus 50 meters per second. And with this, we come to the end of the module on the solutions to sample paper number 3, part 2. And I hope you were able to understand the fundamentals that we discussed in this module. So yes, thank you very much. We'll meet in the next module. Till then, keep learning and keep growing. Thank you very much.